Okay, good evening, everybody. One more time. So, last week we started with this the whole introduction to cloud, introduction to AWS, and the compute service side. It's called EC2, right? Elastic Compute Cloud. So we talked about it, and we, provisioned a few EC2 instances and so forth. Okay, there is a lot more to EC2 than that. There's a lot more. So we will get to that. But I want to pause that for a second and then get back to another topic here called S3. So there is another service called S3. There are three S's here. That's why it's called S3, Simple Storage Service. As name says, it's a simple storage service. There's nothing more to it. Meaning it's a having an external hard disk in the cloud. Okay, it's a storage solution. Like how we talked about EC2 becoming that was a cloud compute service, right? That's a cloud-based compute service. This is a storage service. Okay, so you can use this service to store your data in the cloud. Essentially, that's all it is. So it is so powerful that this S3, there are a lot of other public cloud providers. They also use S3, even though they compete with Amazon and other places. But when it comes to S3, they actually use it. The reason is it's so much powerful. Probably it can, nobody can beat S3 in this particular storage space. Nobody can beat S3. Let's dive into it and then see what it is. So storage, S3 is an object storage service. What it means is, when we talked about EC2, we talked about something called EBS, Elastic Block Store. So that's a block store. Block store is where you can install your operating system or you can install your database or something like that. But the object store is different. Object store is like having an external hard drive. This is where you can store your pictures, videos, documents, any other data for that matter. But you will not be able to install an operating system and run a machine on it, meaning run a compute service on it. Running an EC2 instance, you can do that. It's a pure storage service. Keep that in mind, and it's object storage. S3 is extremely available and scalable. Let's talk about these two terms. It's very, very important for any architect. It doesn't matter whether you are a cloud architect or not. Available meaning, what's your downtime? How much percentage of time your website is available? That's what is available meaning. So if it's available 99.98% of the time, that means about you can have about 8 minutes of downtime in 1 month. So forget about patches, your deployments, considering all of that. Can you imagine Amazon being down for 5 minutes within a month? Can you imagine Facebook being down for 5 minutes, even at the midnight? You may be having midnight, but somewhere else, on some part of the world, it's they're active on Facebook. So those days are gone where you are, where you can bring down your application for hours and deploy your code, right? So, anyways, the point being that it's availability. So it's you put it in a percentage, and they will put it as part of service level agreement also. They will give you in written format saying that my S3 service is available. It's designed for 99.99% of the availability. I'm going to show you in a second. Okay, so these are designed to be highly available, meaning even if one availability zone is down, your document will be available. Meaning, how they would have architected it, they would have redundantly copied it across multiple availability zones. Even if 2 availability zones are down, your document is still available. Does it make sense? That's what I mean by available. Scalable, meaning how many concurrent users can you support it? or how much data can you support it, or how much, are there any limitations are the storage? In fact, there is no limitation. Pretty much you can go on and on and on. Okay, you can infinitely scale. You can store petabytes of information into S3. So it's very important, and it's an interesting number in the cloud industry. It is designed for 99.99999 another 9 nines. It's called 11 nines in the industry. So Amazon guarantees this 11 nines of durability. It's about durability. So it's another term. We have availability, we have scalability, and we have durability. Durability meaning chances of losing the data. So the chances of losing the data with that 99.9999999 11 nines of durability is probably one in several billion objects, meaning you will never lose an object. That's what it means. Meaning, don't worry about hard disk being crashed, or if you store your pictures on your NAS drive, for example, if the chances of hard disk getting crashed, that's possible, right? It's probably 50%, but here it's like one in several hundred billions objects. You could lose one object maybe, but even that's not possible. Does it make sense? So you can use S3 to store data for various applications. If you are building a web application, absolutely. All these banks, they store the generated monthly statements in S3. A lot of people, they store database replication, database backup or snapshots. They store it in S3. Remember earlier we talked about AMIs? They're all internally stored in S3. When you take an image, that is internally stored in S3. So you can use it for mobile applications, all of your photos, videos, and for varied number of use cases, you can safely use S3. Okay, now in S3, there is a concept called storage classes. Based on your need, you can use varied storage classes. You may have a requirement that I want to be able to store this object, but I use this object very frequently. Then you can go into one storage bucket. Or I want to put this object into, I want to store an object, but I don't use it very frequently. I use it rarely, probably once a week or so. But when I use it, I need it within milliseconds. I don't want to wait. That could be your use case. Or I want to store my tax returns, my company's tax returns, or my employees' tax returns. Let's say I'm writing a web application for all the tax brokers. Okay. So I want to store all of their my clients' tax returns for up to 7 years. I want to store it somewhere. I want to archive it somewhere, but I don't need to get it. If at all I get audited by IRS, then I need to be able to pull out the document within a day or within several hours. That's my requirement. I don't need to get it within milliseconds, but I need to have a safe copy somewhere in the cloud. If that's your use case, then you can go for another storage class. So there are different storage classes. I'll go over that, but essentially storage class is that. And all these objects, once you store them, in fact, even to store them, there is a very robust REST API provided by AWS. So you don't have to go to your AWS management console and store it and then retrieve it. That's not the use case. Your applications want to store it, not the humans want to store it. When applications want to store it, obviously that's an automated fashion. So there must be a web service interface. Yes, S3 has the most robust REST API provided across any storage service, period, across any cloud providers. Amazon beats anyone in all the measures. So they have a powerful REST API. You can use it to store the objects, meaning your application can safely use these REST APIs. In fact, you don't have to use the underlying REST APIs also. They already provided a lot of SDKs for you. For Java, there is an SDK. There is a, for .NET environment, there is an SDK. For Python people, there is an SDK. There is a Ruby people, there is an SDK. So you can use your SDK without having to worry about low-level REST APIs. Directly you can use it and store the objects, retrieve the objects, all of that stuff. And you can, when you store an object, you can pick up the appropriate storage class. So S3 supports something called versioning, meaning when you're uploading the same file with different content, what it will do is it will maintain the versioning, like your source code repository, like your Git repository. So it will maintain the versioning. Actually, it will keep the previous file as is. So even if you delete, once you have the versioning enabled, even if you delete that object, the object will be marked for deletion. It will not be really deleted. We'll talk about that versioning, no worries. There is something called lifecycle management. In fact, lifecycle management and encryption, we'll talk about it. Those are separate sections, but it supports that. Maybe I'll mention what lifecycle management very briefly after we talk about the storage classes. Make sense, guys? So these objects, these are called objects. When you upload a file into S3, you will store them in something called bucket. These are called buckets. Buckets are like folders where you store your objects, and the files that you store into these buckets are called objects. Every object will have something called object key, which is your file name, and then the corresponding contents of your objects. So the first thing that you want to do when you interact with S3 is you have to create a bucket. First, you have to create a bucket. And these bucket names, you have to understand this. The S3, when you create an S3 bucket, you will be creating in one of the regions. Either you'll be creating in Northern Virginia region or Ohio region, California, Oregon, or Frankfurt, Mumbai, Sydney, Singapore. You'll be putting it in one of the regions. So it's a region specific. So when you upload your objects, those objects will never leave that region. I want you to understand that. But these bucket names are global. They must be unique across the globe, across all the AWS accounts. Meaning, if you're trying to create a bucket with the name test, that must have been taken on day one. Let's say, if you're trying to create a bucket with the name nextstep.training, that's taken by me. Does it make sense? Once it is taken, it's taken. It's taken forever, meaning once I delete the bucket, it's available for you guys to take it. But as long as I hold it, I create it, that bucket is taken. So bucket names must be globally unique across all the accounts. The reason is they will give you a dedicated DNS name. That is why they want to make the bucket names globally unique. Look at that. So once you create a bucket name, bucket is like a folder, as I told you. That's where you store all of your objects. Let's say, I'm storing all of my photos, Venkat-photos. Maybe that's a bucket name. Let's try if it's available. Okay. But if it's available, you can say Venkat-photos.s3. whatever the region, US East 2 or US East 1, that region.amazonaws.com. This will be your bucket URL. That's where all of your objects are stored. It's a HTTPS. And using your REST APIs, you will be able to store the objects into that. You will be able to get the objects. You can do a HTTP get, you can do a HTTP put, all of that. Does it make sense? I can take questions. Anybody has any questions?
Venkat, so this URL, this bucket is specific to a region, right? So will I be able to access it from a different region?
Will I be able to access it from any region? So this is that's a very good question. So your object is stored within a region, Vamsi, understand that, right? But this is a HTTPS link. It is global. You can access it from anywhere. You will be able to store objects from anywhere in the world, but you will be storing in that region. I want you to understand that. Let's say your customer is uploading an object into this particular bucket from Sydney, but if this bucket is created in Ohio region, even though he's uploading from there, but he's uploading into this bucket, and this bucket happens to be in Ohio, then all the files will be in Ohio only. Does it make sense?
Yes. And this URL contains S3 dot region, right? Can I create the same bucket in a different region?
You cannot. You cannot. Even these bucket names are not only per region, across all the regions, across the globe, across all the accounts. So they have they have something called groups, right? They have three groups. One is the standard one, meaning all the regions, okay? There is another one they created called China. That's for China. One is for global, for everybody. And the third one is for US government cloud, okay? So these bucket names must be unique within those groups. So for all practical purposes, the answer is no. If I have a bucket name, if you took Vamsi, let's say bucket name Vamsi, if you took it in Ohio, if I try to create it in Sydney, it will not be allowed. That's all I'm saying. Make sense?
Yes.
But the reason I give you the long answer is you can do it in a separate group called China or US government cloud. China cloud is different, government cloud is different, and the rest of everything else is different. I'm talking about that everything else. That's what we use.
So same region can have many buckets, right?
Same region can have many buckets. Can we elaborate that? Can you talk about that?
Like in the same region, we can use many bucket names. We can change the bucket names and put the region name same.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's say you have, once you are logged into your account, right? You can create as many buckets as you like.
Yeah.
Within the same region. All I'm saying is the bucket name, once it is taken, that bucket name is taken for everyone. It's like your DNS name. Once google.com is taken, the reason I'm saying is they're giving you a dedicated DNS like this. That is why it's global. Once google.com is taken, you can't own google.com anymore, right? That's taken. That's a DNS. It's global. Similarly, this is also.
So Venkat, once we have a bucket from the one region, so if I want to update, can we update from a different region?
Can we update it from a different meaning? Can we upload the objects?
Can we update the bucket from different region? Like I created the bucket from Sydney, and I'm accessing from like US. And if I want to update from US, can I update?
Absolutely, because this is a HTTPS. It's a global. You're HTTPS, right? The only thing is you can update, you can call this REST endpoint. These are simple REST endpoints. These are like simple HTTP URLs, right? You can call it from anywhere in the world. But when you update the objects or when you add the new objects into that bucket happens to be in that region. It will only go into that region. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Very good questions. So let's talk about the
Hey,
storage
Venkat.
class. Yes.
So can you go back?
Mhm.
So this URL, then why do we have this region? Because this bucket name is it's not particular to region, right? So it's a global. So what is the value for giving the region here?
Very good question. Actually, that's so the reason is Northern Virginia was the first region for AWS. Okay, for Northern Virginia, when they announced it, there is no region here. Dot. So only for Northern Virginia there is no region. Okay, but later on, see, Northern Virginia is a kind of a special region in a way, because that's where they roll out all the new features. So they didn't used to have this dot region. Even if you now, even now, right? If you take out the region, it means it's a Northern Virginia default region. Okay, so later on they created this dot region because the objects names are global. Okay, and they wanted, the reason is, when you interact with these objects, your front gate, S3 has a front gate. Okay, when you call this, S3 has a front gate based on the region. First of all, based on your .s3 .region, that's where they will look for this particular object name, even though the objects name are global across all the regions. Okay, this DNS name, because they used to have it without any region, but now they put a dot region just to be extra safe. But they didn't have region for Northern Virginia even now. So that's how they started it. That's how they made it global. Make sense? So they didn't have region for a long time. Even now, Northern Virginia didn't have a region. Okay. So when you go with this URL, your front door, your DNS, it's not actually DNS, but it's there's something other service called Route 53. What it does is, if you look at the region, and then it will route your traffic into that. Then once you enter into there, that's where the bucket name comes into picture. But I will show you at the time of creation of the bucket itself, it will fail. At the time of creation of the bucket itself, it will fail if that object is already taken across all the regions. Okay. Okay. So
Venkat, that means basically it improves the performance for any REST API calls during pull or push when you have a specific region name, so that maybe does it improve the performance? That is that the reason? Because earlier there is only one data center, now there are many, so easier to retrieve if there is a region specified.
Let me make it clear.
No?
Let me make it clear that having region in the DNS name is a must, period. Except for Northern Virginia. That's the only specialty there. If you do not have a region, it will default it to Northern Virginia, because that happened to be the first region out there, and they didn't have region at some point. Okay, and bucket names were global anyway. So to Ramu's point, right, there's no point in having a region there because your bucket names are across the globe. But the point is, they don't want to find out by looking at the bucket name. First, by S3 region, you'll be taken to the appropriate pool or pod to the region itself, and then you will go there. There are some strategies, we'll talk about it in Route 53, okay, called geolocation based routing and all. So the point to the short answer is, having region in the URL is a must, period. Okay, except the Northern Virginia. Make sense?
Okay, thank you.
So it's not just for the performance. It's a must. They made it must. Period. For a lot of AWS internal reasons, understand that. The long answer that I gave you, the Route 53 will route it exactly and all. Those are all AWS internal reasons. Maybe I should have answered that way. Okay, so let's look at the storage class. I told you, right? There are different storage classes out there, based on your need. Let's take a look at it. The first one is called S3 standard storage. It's the most expensive storage out there. It's a standard, meaning this is used for all regular use cases. You can upload the object, okay, and then immediately it's available within milliseconds. And let's say you have a scenario where you upload and download, you do a HTTP put and HTTP get more frequently, very, very, very frequently, then go for S3 standard. It's a standard pricing model. Okay, they charge per gig and you're done. There is a less expensive one called S3 intelligent tiering. This S3 intelligent tiering, let's say you don't know, you don't have a specific usage patterns. Sometimes use very frequently, sometimes use less frequently. Okay, my clients' monthly statements, they use once a month. Okay, but there are some services that happen to be in the same bucket. For them, I use it very, very frequently. So there are some use cases where I use very frequently and some infrequently. So I don't know my usage patterns. My objects, I don't know how they are. So in that case, I'll go for the intelligent tiering. Intelligent tiering is a machine learning. They use machine learning or artificial intelligence, okay, to determine the appropriate storage class based on your usage pattern. So it's a lesser expensive. And the third one is called S3 standard infrequently accessed. So S3 standard IA is used for infrequently accessed. So I want to store it, but I use it very infrequently. But when I need it in milliseconds. I don't want to wait for hours. I need it in milliseconds. So it gives you in the same performance as a standard when you ask for it, but you are retrieving it very infrequently, then go for IA. Okay, it's a less bill than S3 standard and intelligent tiering. Does it make sense? And there is one more called S3 one zone IA. First, before I talk about it, I want to mention all these above three. So 1 second, guys. All the above three, S3 standard, intelligent tiering, and standard IA, all of them, they will store in at least 3 availability zones. When you upload your picture, it will be stored in at least 3 availability zones. It redundantly copies across 3 different data centers that are geographically separate by at least 100 kilometers, about 100 kilometers, right? So it redundantly copies across 3 availability zones. That's the beauty. But this fourth one is, these are not really important. Even if I lose them, not a big deal. Okay, but I don't want to pay more as much as this one. So I want to go for one zone. So if one availability zone is down, I may not be able to retrieve this guy. I may not be able to retrieve immediately. Maybe I'll have to wait until that availability zone is up. But your document or picture, whatever that object is, that will still be redundantly copied. It will still be redundantly copied within the same availability zone, 3 locations. So you will get the same redundancy, you will get the same durability, same 11 nines durability. Your object will never be lost, but it could go down. Your availability will be less because you stored only in one availability zone. Obviously, you're taking some risk there. If that whole availability zone is down, so let's say there is a lightning, or that let's say there is some network issue in that area. Okay, no internet connection. So then it could be down for that period. So understand the risk. If you have any less important documents, that's okay. But for cheaper price, go for this one. Something like, if you're storing your pictures, let's say you're building a Facebook-like application and you're storing real pictures. So when you store the real pictures, probably you can store the pictures in intelligent hearing or standard IA based on your use case. But let's say you're creating these thumbnails. These thumbnails can be prepared anytime, right? See, if you have the real picture, the original picture, the thumbnails can be created anytime. Let's say I want to dynamically create them. I want to store those thumbnails in one zone IA so that I'll save a lot of money. In case that availability zone is down and if I can't access my thumbnail, I'll regenerate on the fly and give it to them. If you have a use case like that, go for one zone IA, it's cheaper. So these are the 4 options in the storage classes. And there are 2 options for archival options. So one option is S3 Glacier. If you store something in S3 Glacier, you have to keep it for so many days. Let's say you have to keep it for 120 days. I believe we'll find that out. Okay. So S3 Glacier is an archival thing. So you are paying a fraction of S3 standard, very, very, very less price. But when you need it, you will not be able to retrieve it within milliseconds. You will have to, it takes up to a couple of hours in S3 Glacier. And there is the cheapest option called S3 Glacier Deep Archive. This one, the cheapest option, but it could take up to 12 hours to retrieve your object when you need it. For example, your tax documents, you only need it when IRI asks for your clients, right? When IRI sends a letter to you, and then let's say all of your tax documents are stored in Glacier Deep Archive, you can make a request and it's available after 12 hours. Absolutely, that's possible. That's totally fine use case, right? After 12 hours, you'll get the documents, you look at it and respond to your IRS query. It's very fair because you don't need it in milliseconds. So these are the storage classes, guys. So I wanted to show you this, but before we talk about all of this, right? Let's jump in and do it. I've been talking long, right? I really want to jump in. So log into your AWS Management Console and let's understand what I've been talking. So go to services, under storage, the first service here called S3, click on S3. And you can look at every single point that I mentioned. Now let's understand it. So these are the buckets. I don't have any buckets. Let's go ahead and create a bucket. Click on this. And let's say, Venkat, just trying it, bucket name. And my bucket region is US East Northern Virginia. Northern Virginia, let's say I want to do it in US East 2, Ohio region. Okay. And when you're creating this bucket, you're looking at the bucket settings for block public access by default. So people, you guys know some stories there, right? Some Hollywood people, they didn't know what the cloud storage is, and they put some personal stuff out there, and it was, they didn't take care of their passwords and all, it got hacked and all of it made available. So few years back, it was by default, it was not block all public access. But now after a couple of incidents, AWS, what they did is they by default, when you create the bucket, by default, they block all public access unless you want to make them public explicitly. By default, it's like that. Okay, let's leave it like that. And I'll come back and then talk about the permissions. But let's go ahead and create the, don't worry about this advanced settings, object lock enable and disable. We'll get back to this later. Let's go ahead and create the bucket. Oh, it's telling me that bucket with the same name already exists. Okay, let's try this one. It doesn't matter what region is. Let's try create the bucket. Oh, looks like this bucket is available. So I took the bucket. And there are some, when you create the bucket, there are some rules out there. Okay, so bucket naming rules, it's important too. Your bucket name must be between 3 and 63 characters long. It can consist only of lowercase letters, numbers, dots, and hyphens. The most important piece is bucket names cannot contain uppercase character, period. Only the lowercase letters, numbers, and hyphens. Okay, and bucket names must begin and end with a letter or a number. And you cannot have like an IP address. You can't have it. And then this is the answer for your question, Vamsi. Earlier you said, right? Bucket names must be unique within a partition. This is called partition. A partition is a grouping of regions. AWS currently has 3 partitions. One is AWS itself, the standard regions, which is we're already using, which we are already using it. And there is something else called AWS CN. It's a chain of regions. Okay, if you want to use these chain of regions, then your bucket name must be unique within these regions. And the other one is government cloud. But all of our regions that I mentioned, about 22 or more than 22 regions, they all come under this one. Look at all of this one, all these regions, your bucket name must be unique across all of them. Make sense, guys? So I created the bucket, I think. Yep, it's already, this is my bucket name. And now my bucket is empty, obviously. Let's go there, enter into that. And my bucket is empty now. Let's upload an object. Click on upload, add files. And I have this, my logo. Okay, so let's upload my logo. So look at this one here, guys. So I'm the owner, Venkat too. This is my account. So I have complete read, write object, read and write object permissions. And of course I have read. So that's my account. I can share, I can access to other AWS accounts if I want to. And also I can make this object public. Okay. But I cannot make this object public because the bucket itself is blocking public access. Bucket is like your folder, right? Your bucket level itself, you said block all public access. That is why I cannot make this object public at this time. So we have to change the bucket policy first. We have to make policy change that objects can be public in this bucket. Then we will come back and make it public. We will do that in a minute. Click on next. Okay. Take a look at this one here. So this is where you will select your storage class. This is a standard storage class, frequently accessed data. Look at this one, greater than or equal to 3 availability zones. Your picture, I'm uploading my logo. This will be uploaded into at least 3 availability zones. Redundant copy across 3 availability zones. So even if 2 availability zones are down, my data is still available. That is why they're able to give that 99.99% of availability. Make sense, guys? Okay. Next is intelligent tiering. Also storing it in more than 3 availability zones, or at least 3 availability zones. Let's say that. And standard infrequently access, at least 3 availability zones. But look at one zone IA. It's at least 1 availability zones. So this one, if availability zone is down, your object may not be available within that period. And your Glacier, I told you, it's going to be stored across 3 availability zones, at least 3 availability zones, but it's not going to be available immediately. And Glacier Deep Archive is also going to be put in at least 3, but it's going to take several hours, at least 12 hours. Okay. So, and there is something else called reduced redundancy, RRS, reduced redundancy storage. It's a previous generation. It's not recommended anymore. It's a frequently accessed and a non-critical data. You don't want to use it because this is going to be deprecated very soon. So do not use it. It's not recommended by Amazon itself. And it's a previous generation. Do you want to encrypt your objects? If you want to encrypt, you can do it. We are not encrypting right now. So let me go upload it into standard because mine is very frequently accessed. So I'll put it in standard, click on upload. That's it. My logo is getting up. It's already uploaded. Click on it. Okay. And this is the object URL. Now take a look at this one, guys. Let's copy this guy and understand it carefully here. See here, s3.us east 2, this is a region name .amazonaws.com/ your bucket name. This is my bucket name. And then / your object key. Every object will have something called object key. Object key is nothing but your name of your object when you uploaded it. This is the name of the object and this is my object key. See this one here? Every object will have an object key. That's your fully qualified name of your object. This is my logo maker _ 60ilwx.png file. Make sense? So click on it and it's saying access denied. Well, this is not made public. And this is public. I'm trying to access it public, right? So let's go back. So what did we do? We created a bucket. We uploaded an object. But when we created the bucket, we did not make the bucket public, meaning we gave that block all public access enabled. So let's go ahead and disable that and then come back and make this object public. Let's do that. So how do I do that? Well, go to your S3 and then go to your bucket and then go to permissions. When you go to permissions, look at this one, block all public access. It is on, meaning you're blocking all public access. Go click on edit and then take out this guy. What are you doing here? By taking out, you're saying that, yes, it can be public. Objects can be made public is what I'm saying. Now it's saying, are you sure you want to do it? Updating the block public access will affect this bucket and all objects within. So may result in some objects becoming public. Are you sure you want to do that? Yes, I want to. I know what I'm doing. Now, public access settings updated successfully. Now the bucket itself has been made in such a way that objects can now be made public. It doesn't mean all the objects are public. I want you to understand that very clearly. It doesn't mean all the objects, once you upload an object now, it doesn't automatically be public. You have to make every object public. So let's go to this object and then see here, there is a button now, it's enabled. Earlier it was not enabled because that bucket itself was blocking all public access. Let's say make public. This is one way to do it. Or go to object level permission and then select this guy and then select access to this object, read object, and then click on save. Now go back to your bucket name and select your object and then go down. This is object URL. This is called object URL. Click on your object URL. There you go. That's my logo. Make sense? I was able to. And same thing, it doesn't matter where you are. Since this is made public, everyone can go and try this. Please go and try that from your computers? I put this URL in the group chat. Please go on and try.
Yeah, Venkat, I have a question.
Absolutely.
So the object key looks like it is the logo, the logo file name.
It's the file
So
name, yeah.
that means we cannot upload files with the same name. Does it take the same key? Say, or I mean,
Very good.
does
Very
it
good question.
say it is duplicate like the bucket name error?
Very good question. Very good question. So what happens, I'll rephrase your question. So what happens if I upload the same object with the same name or same object key, right? Essentially. Well,
Yes.
it gets overwritten. It gets overwritten. So let's say you have a file name, let's say, nichela.jpg, and if you upload the same file, it gets overwritten unless you have a versioning enabled. If you have a versioning enabled, even in that case, it gets overwritten, but the previous version it will take a copy of the previous version and put it aside. We will see that in a minute. But if you do not have a versioning enabled, it will override because you have the object key, and object key must be unique within the bucket. Make sense? It's like your folder. Within a folder, if you have, if you try to copy the same file name, then obviously it will overwrite, right?
No, it will put like parenthesis 1 and it will store the previous one also, right?
It depends on the use case, right?
Sometimes, sometimes,
exactly.
it will ask an option to
exactly.
copy, replace.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
got it.
Exactly. So here it's a key. Make sense, guys? So that's the object key and the name, and that's about it. Any other questions?
Venkat,
Yes.
so for example, I created an object in a bucket and I've deleted the object. So will I be charged for that?
Okay.
Since we are not really deleting it, but it's marked as deleted, right?
No, that's not correct actually. But I will answer it. You are partially right. Let me answer it. So everyone. So what happens if I see this object, this particular object now? If I delete this guy, right? I will select it, go ahead and actions and delete it, right? Will I be charged now? Nope, that object is permanently gone. The reason the object is permanently gone is because I do not have versioning enabled. If I have a versioning enabled at the object level, then all the objects, it will keep all the versions. Then it will behave differently. Does it make sense?
Yes. So
if versioning is enabled, let's go ahead and see that. Since we are talking about versioning, let's jump into that. Okay. By the way, a couple of tidbits here, guys, for the exam perspective, especially. The minimum size of an object is 0 bytes, meaning you can upload an empty file into S3. It does not force you to say that, hey, you need to have at least 1 byte. You do not have. You can upload an empty file also. S3 lets you do that. And the other one is maximum size of a single object is 5 terabytes. Single object. Of course, you can have petabytes, right? But one object size cannot exceed more than 5 terabytes. Okay. And a lot of people, they get confused with the fact that S3 they think S3 is a global service, meaning when I create an object, when I create a bucket, maybe they think that it will magically span across multiple regions. That is not correct. When you create an object, when you create a bucket, you are creating that bucket in a specific region, and that does not leave the region. I want you to understand it. You just created a bucket, right? Very, very clearly understand that. So when you create a bucket here, it is asking you, where do you want to create it? What region you want to create it? Well, will I be able to duplicate it? Well, yes, there is another option called cross-region replication. We will talk about that later. But when you create an object, you are creating an object. When you create a bucket, you are creating that bucket within a specific region. I want you to understand that. But when it comes to the bucket name, it is global. Only the bucket name is global. Global, not only across all the regions of your account, across all the accounts. It has to be unique. Make sense? So please understand that going into the exam.
Venkat, I have a quick question. So is there any limit on number of the buckets that we can create per account, or I can create any number of buckets?
You can, for all practical purposes, there is no limit really, you know, unless, yeah, there's no real hard limit. You can create it.
Okay.
Okay, so before we look at it, right, let's look at the versioning, for example. Let's go next step training. And then properties. See here, guys, currently my versioning is by default, it is not enabled. Okay, by default, it's not enabled. But once I enable it, I will not be able to delete that versioning tag. I can suspend it, but I cannot completely delete it. Suspend also means pretty much you can, you'll not be using it from that point onwards, okay? So what I want to do is, I want to go ahead and enable versioning and see what happens. Save it. Now let's go back. So let's create a file called readme on my desktop. This is version 1. Yeah, I'll create it desktop readme.txt. Sure. Let's upload that file. Click on next. And by the way, your storage class, is it at the bucket level or object level? Look at this one. By the way, when I'm uploading this object, at the time of uploading the object itself, I can say, yes, grant public read access. I'm granting public read access. Next, and see this one, storage class is at the object level. When you create a bucket in a specific region, but some objects can be in S3 standard storage class, and some objects can be, archival, like a Glacier. Okay, so I'm still choosing my standard, or I can choose even standard IA, not a problem. Next, and then upload. So my object is uploaded, my README. Okay, now what I want to do is, let's go back and let's open this object and then see what happens. This is version number 1, right? So let's go back. Now what we'll do is, let's upload, let's change the content of this file, the README file. Let's go change the README file. I'll say version 2. Now let's go ahead and upload it. And I'm keeping it. I'm answering a couple of people's question here with the single, single exercise here. Nischala, did I answer your, I'm answering your question now. So readme.txt file, right? It's exact same file, I'm uploading it. It's the same key. Go to desktop, readme.txt file, next, okay. Make object public again. And then sure, or I'll keep IA, upload. Now look at it. So click on it and go to object URL again. I mean, it's the same object URL, right? We can refresh it. See this one? This is version 2. Makes sense, right? Now, let's go to our bucket. For example, here, see here guys, versions hide. By default, your versions are hidden. Now, if I click on show, then it will tell me that this is the latest version and this is the previous version. Did you see that? So it is maintaining exact 16-bit 16 bytes here. So this is 16 bytes and this is another 16 bytes. So you have to pay for both of them. So let's say you are developing some application, and as an architect, you selected that, hey, this bucket needs versioning, and you keep uploading the same objects with the some minor modifications. Okay, behind the scenes, you will be charged for all these versions because it is essentially storing the full copy of your file, full 16 bytes here and full 16 bytes here, and you will have to pay for 32 bytes, not 16 bytes. And if I upload again the same, let's go change it to version 3. Now you will be paying for 3 times 16. Make them public. You can change this one if you want to. See this? Hide, and this is my latest. And go back to your this one. Yes, version 3. Now let's answer. Okay, with the same file with the same object key. Okay, file with the same object key will get overwritten by default. If you have a versioning enabled, the previous version will be put aside. Okay, it will take a copy of the previous version and then it will put the newer version. Make sense? Now, let's answer Vamsi's question. Select this guy and then actions, delete. Hey, this is gone. Now let's go do it here. Access denied. You don't have it, right? But look at this one. I have hidden the versions. Click on show. Now see this one, guys. So this is my version 1, 829.35, and this is my version 2, 830.51. This is my version 3, 832.38, and then this is my version 4. Of course, it's a dash. It's saying delete marker. This has been deleted. So it's not really deleting the object. It's putting a delete marker there. That's all it is doing. So you are still paying for all these 3 versions of it, even though you deleted it. But you enabled version for a reason. When somebody deletes it, maybe he accidentally deleted it. So you want to keep these objects you kept there for a reason. This is like a source code repository, right? So what you want to do now, I want to resurrect it. I want to resurrect my previous file, right? So what I want to do is I can safely delete this delete marker itself. Actions, delete. I'm deleting the delete marker itself. Now I'm back to latest version, go back, there you go, version 3. And now if I delete version 3, let's see what happens. What happens? Your 2 becomes the latest. And now if I take out this guy, my 1 will be new. There you go. Make sense? This is what happens.
Can we keep every version in different storage class?
Can you repeat that?
Can we keep every version in different storage class?
Absolutely, you can. You can.
Is there any disadvantage with that?
Not really. I mean, you can keep the latest version when you are uploading it, right? When you are uploading it, at that time you are deciding where you want to select it. So I'm uploading my statement. Okay, it's going to override my previous statement. So again, I want to ask my question: what is my use case? How frequently do I need access to? Do I need very frequently? Go for S3 standard. If I need it infrequently, but when I need it in milliseconds, then I'll go for S3IA, infrequently access. I don't know my usage patterns. It's, sometimes frequently, sometimes very infrequently. It's like, I'm like all over. Go for intelligent tiering. Let let IA, artificial intelligence decide it for you, so that it will appropriately switch between these two, and then you'll get some, some price advantage there. So ask yourself, and then can my object be reproducible in case my availability zone is down? Is it really non-critical? If it is non-critical, put it in S3 one zone IA. Does it make sense? So since you're only worrying about when you upload it, you're only worrying about what's happening with my latest copy only here, even though its versioning is enabled, right? You're only worrying about the latest copy. So now there is something else called lifecycle management. I will talk about that probably in the next class. So with the lifecycle management, we can do that. What we can do is keep the latest copy in this particular storage tier. Okay, but after 7 days, keep all the previous versions into Glacier. Slowly keep them in archive, so that I want to save money. As an architect, you want to solution for your web applications or mobile applications or big data applications. You want to take cost into consideration. That is one of the architect's biggest responsibility, is to come up with economical solutions. Make sense?
Okay.
So that's about it. And then let's go back and quickly look at it. Since you understand the storage classes now, right? Let's briefly look at this this chart here. See here, guys. We have S3 standard, intelligent tiering, IA, standard IA, one zone IA, Glacier, and Glacier Deep Archive. Look for this. Designed for...
One question, like I'm not sure whether you covered this or not about the pricing model, as we are using the free tier. So in this case, like
you can safely create it. Don't worry about it. You will not be charged. Okay. So designed for durability. Look at this. All these are designed for 11.9s. This is very important when you, especially preparing for the exam, right? These are all the tiers, all the storage tiers are designed for 11.9s. Meaning it's very tempting to think that S3 one zone IA is not designed for 11.9s. No, it is. It will be stored in one availability zones, but it will redundantly copy within availability zones. It will redundantly copy in 3 different places. Make sense? It may not be available. If availability zone is down, your object may not be available for that period. But once it is up, your object is up. You're not going to lose the data though. I want you to understand that. And designed for availability, look at it. 99.99% standard, 99.9. Intelligent tiering is 99.9. It's because intelligent tiering will switch between standard and standard IA. Because standard IA is 99.9%. Okay, because you're paying a little bit of less money. Standard is the most expensive one. So, and then one zone IA is 99.5%. One zone IA is obviously less, 99.5%, because it's stored in only one availability zones. What if that availability zone is down? Obviously, you have to be accounted for that, right? That's why. But 99.5% is about I don't know how many. Let's put things into perspective.
4 hours.
4 hours.
Monthly 4 hours.
There you go. 99.45. Sorry, 99.5% availability in hours per month. 99.5 is downtime per year is 1.83, 3.65 hours per month. So you can you can't sue Amazon if it is down for 3.65 within a month. Does it make sense, guys? That's what they mean by, SLAs. So, and S3 Glacier is 99.99 and Deep Archive is also 99.999. And availability SLA. So it's designed for this much, but you have to rely on this availability SLA, meaning Amazon is putting their signature for these numbers. Standard is 99.9, intelligent tiering is 99%, IA is 99%, one zone IA is 99%. These guys are 99.9 and 99.9. So meaning if it goes down, let's say 99.9%, 99.9 is 43 minutes. So within any month, if it's not available for more than 43 minutes or 44 minutes, right, you can sue Amazon pretty much. These are the SLAs. Okay. And availability zones, it's all greater than 3 except one zone IA. And another thing,
Venkata, one question on availability zones. S3 standard, intelligent tiering, all these 3 greater than 3 or so if
everyone except one zone IA pretty much has that.
Yeah, so we upload the bucket into specific region, our URL is specific to that region. If the region goes down, the URL will be changed or it will redirect our URL to the other available zone.
Understand that. So you have a region. Region is a geographical region. Within that you have availability zones, right? Within that you have Northern Virginia has 6 availability zones. Ohio has 3 availability zones. What we are saying is not if region is down. We are saying if availability zone is down. Region is a logical thing. That won't be down. Here we are talking about availability zones. Availability zone is a data center. Does it make sense? Your URL is at a region level. That will not change. Internally, maybe 2 availability zones are down. It will automatically, it will know how to traverse it within that. Your URL will never change. Did I answer your question?
Got it.
Okay, so another one I wanted to keep in mind is minimum capacity charge per object. Guys, this is the reason I'm spending time here is whoever is taking seriously this exam, I want all of you to take it seriously. And this is important. So minimum capacity charge per object, right? So S3 standard is pretty much, they charge based on even 1 byte. So this is also 1 byte allowed. But standard IA, if you're using it, 128 KB is minimum. Okay. If you upload a 5 KB file, still they'll charge you 128 KB. So one zone IA, 128 KB, and Glacier and Glacier Deep Archive, 40 KBs. There are some questions around that. That's why I want you to really understand it. And also minimum storage duration charge. Your S3 standard, pretty much you can upload it, delete it, not a problem. Okay. But intelligent tiering and standard IA, you have to keep it for 30 days. And your one zone IA also, you have to keep it for 30 days. But your Glacier and Glacier is 90 days. You have to keep it. Because you're talking about Glacier is for archival, right, guys? So you have to keep it for 90 days. You will be billed for 90 days. You will be billed for 90 days. Minimum storage duration charge. So even if you take it next day, you'll be billed for 90 days. Minimum, okay, 90 days. And even if you upload a 5 KB object, you'll be billed for 40 KB. Understand that. 180 days for Deep Archive. Okay. And the retrieval fees, there is no retrieval fees for standard. It's a standard per gig charge. Okay. Because you're paying most expensive one. Even intelligent tiering, there's nothing. But here it's all of these ones, you will get retrieval fees per GB. You will have to pay some amount when you retrieve it. And first byte latency, how quickly can you get your objects? This is milliseconds. This is milliseconds. IA is also milliseconds. One zone IA is also milliseconds. But these two several minutes, select minutes are hours, and here it's several hours. Okay. Yeah, I think that's all. Everything is same. I would say I will leave it at that, and we will pick up in the next session. We'll talk about security, lifecycle management, encryption. Okay, there's a lot more, and how can we are able to upload our objects and download our objects using AWS Management Console, right? But what other ways I can do it? You can use your REST API. Remember I told you REST API? So how can I do it? How can I get my objects from REST API? Or there are a couple more options. Can I write my Java code, and using Java code, can I go get the objects, or can I upload it? Absolutely you can. I will show you how to do that. And that is the fun. This is not the fun. Doing it in Management Console. No, that's not how we do it in real life, right? Our application wants to store the objects. It's not my personal stuff. My photos and videos, that's not the use case we are talking about here. You are building, you are an architect, you are architecting for an enterprise application. And then there are some use cases where you're working for bank, and bank statements, you want to put it in storage. Those are the use cases. How can you programmatically upload the objects there? How can you programmatically download the objects? That's the fun stuff. Make sense, guys?
Yes, Venkat.
Venkat, have a question.
Absolutely.
So the availability zones for all the storage classes, I mean, except the one zone, it is greater than or equal to 3. So is it a configurable parameter? Like, can I decide, like, I want, let's say, I know greater than or equal to 3 is at least 3, right? So what if if client wants to select, choose how many zones he wants? Is it a possibility, or is only AWS decides? We cannot.
He cannot.
Okay.
It's not configurable. As an architect, based on the use case, you can only select one of these 6 tiers. That's all it is. None of this can change. You can't change any of this one here. This is how AWS S3 is architected for. Does it make sense? AWS has architected different storage tiers for you, for your distinct use cases. Based on your use case, pick the appropriate storage class for your objects and architect your application accordingly. So no.
But once the object is created, do we get to know, like, how many zones it was copied to, or we will not be knowing?
You wouldn't know. You wouldn't know.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Because S3 manages that. Your AWS manages that. It's all Amazon's headache, right? It's not your problem. But what they're telling you in SLA, what they're telling you is that I'm storing it in at least 3 availability zones, guys. Even if 2 availability zones are down, your objects is available for it. Your business will not get impacted even if 2 cities are down with floods and electricity problems, or God forbid some nuclear something. Does it make sense? That's what they mean by more than 3 availability zones.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Hey Venkat, I have a quick question on the retrieval fee. So for S3 standard IA, they say per GB retrieve, right? For all of them actually. So does that mean they charge after I cross GB, or per month if I say maybe I just used only 100 MB, they charge for 100 MB, something like that, or they charge per whole?
They charge per gig.
Per gig. Okay.
Yep. S3 standard, they charge per gig.
So is it monthly based, or they charge as soon as they cross the 1 gig?
That's it's not monthly, because look at this one. There is no minimum storage duration charge, right? You can keep it for 5 minutes. They will only charge that for 5 minutes. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Because your minimum storage duration charge is, it's not there. But for this guy, once you put it in intelligent hearing, you will be billed for 30 days. Okay. We didn't talk about another beautiful concept. I'll talk about it. You can build static websites. I will show you in the next class how Bollywood is able to, for every Bollywood film, pretty much, they release a website for their movie, right? Let's say ironman3movie.com. Okay, for example, I don't know if that website exists or not. Hypothetically. So you don't need any EC2 instances. You don't need any Apache servers. You don't need to worry about any of that. You can put all those HTML objects, your videos, photos, and your HTML, CSS images, all of that, dump it into S3, and S3 will make it automatically make it a static website. There is a way you can do that. See this one here? I'll show you next class, but I'll give you a small hint here. Go to properties and see this one, static website hosting. And if I make it use this bucket to host static website, that's all. You just upload your index.html here, and this will be your website URL. And of course, you can get vanity URL on top of it using solutions like Route 53. But this is exactly how they're doing it. No servers, nothing. And the beauty is infinitely scalable. That is the beauty. You don't have to worry about it. It will infinitely scale. It's at 10 users, it will scale 10 million users, it will scale 100 million users automatically. It will, that's the beauty of cloud elasticity, right? So you can get it. You can get your static website hosting just like that. It's beauty. We can talk about that. That's, it only takes 5 minutes, but I will not do it now.
But there's security, right? It's important to have security. If I create a static hosting as well, there needs to be security with regards to the DNS, with regards to the files that are there. You need to restrictions needs to apply. IAM needs to come in place.
Guys, it's a static website. That's why I said static website. All the static websites are inherently public, right?
Inherently public. Okay.
All the static websites, there is no restriction, there is no security, there is no IAM. In all fairness, there's nothing there. They are public. If you have a security concerns, then it's not a static website. Then you're bringing dynamic content into picture, and then based on your, who can access, your authentication, authorization, all of that come into picture. But I'm talking about static websites. Nothing.
Got it.
Wonderful. So that's all I have. Well,
yeah, Venkat, one question.
Yes.
Yeah, so I have a file, and I know that there are 4 versions for that file available.
Yep.
So I wrote a program, and I would like to access all the versions.
Yep, you will be able to do that.
Okay.
You'll be able. Remember, it gave you. I can show you that. When you upload the README, we have README here, right? Let's upload the same guy. Let's make this guy public. Okay, show me the versions. See this guy, right? And take a look at this one. What's the object URL? Your s3.region. all of this /bucket name /object key ? version ID equal to every single object will have its a unique version ID. You can put that into the request parameter version ID equal to, and then you can get that specific version.
Okay.
This is the version number 1. You take out this guy, and then you will get the latest one, version number 3. Does it make sense?
Yes.
And put your version ID, you'll get that specific version. You will be able to retrieve it.
Okay. And we are storing all these objects in S3 buckets, right? So how do they internally store it? Do they compress these files or and encrypt them, and like how do they manage that storage?
So we will talk about encryption. Will it compress? It will not compress. Pretty much you'll be paying it. Yeah, sorry, you'll be paying it for the entire 16 bytes here in this case. Okay.
Okay.
When you talk about encryption, yes, by default it is not. We did not enable encryption, but you absolutely can enable encryption, and there are several ways to do that. Encryption, when you talk about encryption, you're talking about security encryption at rest. When this file is stored on a hard disk, is it encrypted? That's the question you wanted to answer, right?
Yeah.
As an architect.
Compressed. Do they compress it?
No, they don't compress it. I mean, they don't compress, at least for us. Okay, if they use some other mechanism to save their internal architecture, we don't know. But as far as your bill is concerned, you are paying for the full 16 bytes.
Okay.
Okay, and I don't care about their internal architecture, and we don't even know how. Does it make sense? But
yes.
Encryption, we care about encryption, absolutely, because I want to make sure my objects are secure, right? And then encryption at rest is a big topic. We will talk about that. At high level, I can tell you, once you upload it, here there is a second option there. Once you click next, there is an encryption there. There are several ways you can do it. There's something else called key management service, S3 encryption, server-side encryption, and client-side encryption. There are several ways, and it's a very, very good exam topic. There are at least 4 ways you can do it, pretty much. Versioning, we talked about it, cross-region. See this one? There are encryption. There are 4 ways you can encrypt it. So we'll talk about that probably in the next class.
Okay.
Okay, guys. That's all I have.
Will it be charged for empty buckets also, or some data need to be inside?
No, empty buckets, no. Okay, so let me stop recording.